son, we're about to go. But of course you'll never know where the ship's gonna take you. But we all know this is the Shanon Show. This isn't a romantic podcast.
I don't know what I'm
The
talking about.
stories will never run out. Banana thoughts or some wet
Are they wet?
socks. Strap in tight, 'cause this is the Shanon Show.
Are you actually putting this on the podcast?
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Shanon Show Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Shannon Hyde, and today, oh boy, do we have a good one. Returning to the podcast is the co-host of the original Shammy Awards and my former co-captain from the Kubasaki baseball days, Sammy Williamson, back on the podcast. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Always a pleasure having you on the pod. And joining us today is the 2018 Pacific South Teacher of the Year, one of the legends, and I mean absolute legends from the halls of Kubasaki. Joining us from Bahrain, Miss Erika Wootton is on the podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, I'm really, really excited for this one. I mean, anytime we get to talk to a DODEA teacher, especially a former teacher, especially Sammy's former Spanish teacher. I mean, how exciting is this, guys? I mean, with all the foreign language that Sammy absorbed from your classroom, I'm sure he's going to have a lot of quality questions here. First of all, I want to start with a little bit of your background, because when I was doing research for this podcast, and when I say research, that usually just means online stalking, just so everyone knows.
Quality.
Quality. I mean, what are we going to do? I saw that you actually had a military kid background of yourself, and this being the Best Military Kids podcast, I would be greatly mistaken if I didn't ask you a little bit about your military kid upbringing. So what branch was your family a part of, and what was that like for you?
Well, my family is Navy, and my family
Gotcha.
has been Navy for a long time. Like my mom, my dad, my mom's mom and dad, my dad's mom and dad, my brother, all Navy.
Goes back a ways.
Yes, it does. My grandmothers, both my grandmothers were waves in World War II, and my granddad was a career 35 years in the Navy, and both my parents retired with over 20 years. My dad's a retired helicopter pilot, and my mom was an intel officer. And my brother worked in, he was in the Navy. He did Navy ROTC in college, and then did about 4 years. And I was like, I want to be a music teacher.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Don't you want to go to the academy and follow in the family footsteps? And no.
Wasn't for you? No.
No. But I knew that I wanted to keep that lifestyle. I knew because it was very positive for me. Growing up in a military family was an extremely positive experience, and I loved it. And I knew I wanted to give back to that community. I knew that I wanted to remain a part of that community, and that it worked out beautifully. I got to student teach at Ramstein, and I got to teach K2 music in the morning and high school choir in the afternoon. And then I got picked up for Seoul, South Korea as my very first job out of college. And so I've been teaching with DODEA for 17 years. Oh my God, I'm so old.
No. That's really cool. You've been all over the place a little bit. You said that your military upbringing was a mostly positive experience, and a lot of people have like mixed feelings about that, because that usually comes with a lot of moving and, the deployments. Was there anything that was notably difficult for you, and why do you see it as an overall positive?
Well, I think because of the multi-generations of military family and military history, my family understood how to support each other and how to make it work. So when my dad had 6-month deployments when we were in Hawaii, my mom's parents came and stayed with us and helped.
Gotcha.
And when he had longer tours, or when things like, my mom went into the reserves after my brother was born, so that she could spend a little more time as a parent instead of a full-time active duty military woman. But doing that, she had 2 weeks of required service every year, and that was a little challenging for my dad. So family came in and helped with that.
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Once it's such a family atmosphere, and genuinely people who are in the military family community understand that it takes a lot to be successful and to to survive. And so people
Yeah.
are so willing to help each other and to kind of build family, wherever you are. And almost automatically, there are people willing to help anyone, just at the drop of a hat. How can we help? Let me help you settle in,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So that's why it's been a positive experience, because it is genuinely a huge family anywhere you go.
Yeah. It is amazing the amount of support that you can find when people know you're a military family. Sammy, is that something that you experienced? Did you find a lot of support even within your own family or outside of it growing up?
Yeah, I mean, my grandma was always coming over. We had, well, when my dad was with Special Forces, he was gone like 300 days out of the year. So
Corp.
Corp used to be gone a lot. And no, it was just, we would space back from Okinawa when we lived there the first time, and we would go to Colorado, and we would just find easy ways to go and connect. Neighbors were always incredible because they would always like flip rotations. So 1 month out of the year, my neighbor's husband was gone, and then we just it was easy to find support in the communities, no matter like the branch, no matter it was just, and even at school it was easy to connect with the students. And that's why, transferring from a public school to a military school, it's a little easier to, connect out and reach out with the students there.
Just people helping people, man. It's a great thing to hear.
People helping people. It's a
great
simple
thing.
As it gets.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, Miss Wootton, this may seem a little obvious because you grew up in the military community, but did that help you as a DODEA teacher? Did you want to like be supportive for military kids? Was that one of the driving factors in what you wanted to do?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even having a little bit of reverse culture shock, my dad retired from the Navy when I was starting middle school, which is awkward time for anyone.
Certainly.
Hell. But I remember, I had lived in so many different states. I had done tours in Italy, and that's when we retired. We were in Italy, and I came back to middle school in the United States, where in that community, everyone had been together since kindergarten.
Right.
And here I was like, I had just returned from Italy, and I'm a military kid. Ooh,
and I like music,
and I like, yes. What do you people do here? and it was awkward. It was uncomfortable because everyone else I had encountered my entire school career knew that lifestyle, had cool stories to tell as well. And then a lot of these kids hadn't ever left the state that they were born in. So almost like at that point, I was like, oh, no, this isn't for me. But I think having that experience and growing up in that military household really pushed me towards wanting to return to that and being able to make connections with kids, because I've lived that, but I've also been on the other side of it, where you are in Bahrain. There are a lot of kids who are having their first, in Okinawa as well, they're having their first overseas tour, and they're encountering a lot of kids who have already done this, and and they're career military kids. They know what it's like, and so it's nice to be able to connect with the kids who know what it's all about, and the kids who are trying it on for the first time and seeing how it goes. So
right. And this is jumping ahead a little bit, but do you think that those kids are supporting each other well? Do you think it's a mix that works well, having some more experienced kids and some kids who haven't done it as much?
I think now it is. I think because teachers are, especially teachers here and in the DODEA world, we're counseled more to be alert and aware of how kids are fitting in, how they are reacting, and how they're getting along. And I think in Bahrain, it's very, very different, because we have a dorm of students who are not DODEA kids. They are shipped from their families in Saudi Arabia to come to a DODEA school. So we have career military kids. We have kids who've never been overseas and now they're in the Middle East. And we have students from Saudi Arabia who
they're living in a dorm?
Yes, who
Oh my
live in a dorm
goodness.
on
House or
campus.
I
anything?
never
with
heard
no
of this.
Oil money?
Yes.
Whoa.
It's don't quote me on this, but it's about $26,000 a year in tuition for kids to go to a different school.
Chump change for some people in
Well,
Saudi Arabia.
it's really interesting, but it's a really interesting mix of people. But you have teachers who know that we got to get this, we got to get the relationships built quickly, and so that we can progress together and do good things. So that, I think, having all the teachers with that mindset, not everybody, obviously, not all teachers are on board to help at all, but I think trying to highlight the positive people who, want to do good things and help
there's I talk about it all the time on the podcast, and as well with Sammy, is just the difference in DODEA teachers. It seems like there's so many like amazing ones, and there's so many ones who don't necessarily buy into that as much, which we're getting into. I don't need to be calling out teachers here. That is not what we're doing on this podcast. I've never done that, by the way, not once.
No, not at all.
No, never. But I think it's really interesting though, from a DODEA's teacher perspective, is you kind of have that extra responsibility to do that. And whereas a public school teacher, they may never feel the need or the desire to really get involved and make sure that your student group is getting along together or fitting in well. So that's just a whole nother, because you're already trying to teach. I mean, you have other responsibilities as a teacher as it is. So is that a challenge that you look forward to, or is it just part of your job?
To me, it's not a challenge anymore. It's part of the game. It's exactly what I need to do. And and from a music standpoint, we're not going to make music together unless we start bonding immediately. Right. We're not going to be able to produce quality work. We're not going to be able to learn from each other and grow unless kind of get over that initial, who are you? What is this? Kind of hump.
What's going on? Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Why am I here? We gotta bond and move quickly. Otherwise it's just, it's not going to be a quality experience for the kids. And I'm not in this job for anything but that. I'm here for my students, and I want them to have a quality experience and a quality education. So you got to do as much as you can quickly so that can progress at a good rate.
Right. Speaking of quality experience for the students, Sammy, you had a really quality experience in Miss Wootton's classroom, from what I understand, not only in Spanish, but you took a little bit of music appreciation. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I learned how to appreciate music like nobody's business. Let me tell you that.
What kind of
the
music
song
did you
we
learn
made with Brenna. Oh yeah.
No, I forget what the system we used, but it was just learning how to make music. Yeah, just standard, like you working with like 808 beats and whatnot.
Wonderful.
The full producer. I don't know. It was actually pretty cool. Like looking back at it now, like I was watching more hockey than I was actually producing beats in class.
I know.
It was pretty cool.
Oh, I know.
We did this one. We did like the song of the week or whatever. Everybody presented a song of the week, and you just grow to appreciate everybody's likings and getting a new taste of what everybody's listening to. We had some of the Japanese kids in the class listening to K-pop over there or whatnot. Yeah, well, that's Korean pop, or like J-pop, sure. Yeah, all that. Yeah. But and then I think I was the only one who ever played country music in the class, so it is what it is. But it was a lot of fun. And Spanish, oh my gosh, I spoke a lot. I took all 3 years and then my first year of high school. All 3 years of middle school and then my first year of high school, I took Spanish. And my mom really wanted me to stay into it. It's funny because I ended up taking it through my junior year and I don't remember a darn thing now. But I passed my AP Spanish exam. Actually, I'll have you know that. But I don't remember a thing because I stopped speaking it for like a year and a half. But no, it was a lot of fun. Talking baseball, learning Spanish, and then just having a real teacher. That's one thing that Miss Wootton was cool for. She was more so like the college professors I have now, where I
totally agree. Yeah, I never had her, but similar vibes.
Yeah, you could you could just have a general conversation with her. You could talk about life. You could, you know, if you were having a bad day. We had more bad days than we probably should have as a class, but just, you know, I forget what we had. I don't know, but it was just a good time. It was like how school should be, and how, you know, more teachers are, I see, like, evolving, especially with what we just came out of with the pandemic and what we're still working on with it. Just real people, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's really important, because I think a lot of high school teachers, they kind of portray college as something that it's just totally not. I'm not sure if it's like an age thing, but it's really, you have a lot of personable experiences with professors, I've realized. Like, you talk to them and it's totally different from that power dynamic in a traditional high school classroom where y'all sit in rows and you're just doing textbook work for 90 minutes. It's just much different. Is that something that you wanted to change, Miss Wootton, whenever you got into high school classrooms?
I just wanted it to, and the way I've always felt about it is that you know, what's going to be best for kids, what's going to be best for them to learn, what's going to make them most comfortable, what's going to make them most eager to learn. And Sammy, I'm going to totally tell a story right now.
Please.
Poor sweet Sammy had his heart broken when in Spanish, and
I didn't have my heart broken.
I think I've heard parts of the story.
All right. It seemed like he was pretty upset. We'll go with he was upset. And the young lady in question was in the classroom. And of course, this happened to be like the day where I'm like, let's learn how to salsa before prom. Woo!
Right. Yeah.
God. And of course, the two people left in the class were Sammy and this girl. And I was like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Sammy, let's dance.
Yeah, it was all a fugazi, actually.
Oh man. And then out of that, I mean, like, that's the thing about having a quality rapport with your students and understanding them in and outside of the academic arena is huge. I think, and like I think because Sammy trusted me, like I could read between the lines of what was going on and how uncomfortable that was for him. I probably made it 1,000 times more uncomfortable, but it
was awesome.
Okay, good. But then, you know, like the ripple effect of that afterwards, and how the end of the year ended for Sammy and his love life was great. And then, you know,
like a Hallmark movie.
Yes, like a Hallmark
beautiful
movie.
Thing.
Baseball on the side, but that's the other part.
Whoa, shouldn't be on the side.
Oh, well, you know, not a coach or anything, but that's the other cool thing, is that when you, as a teacher, when you accept the full picture of your student and you support the full picture of your student, there's, you know, people want to be around that. People want to learn in that setting. So going to the baseball games and supporting the team, and you know, and like chaperoning prom, and you know, just going to the drama productions, or just, you know, encouraging students in all of their academic and non-academic pursuits, you know, extracurricular pursuits. That's what it's all about, you know, like this is. We're all people. We're all trying to grow and learn and figure life out. So why not be real and let things happen and roll with it?
What do you think? Yeah, Sammy, well, let me tell you, he was very excited after that day in class. He could not wait to tell everybody about his salsa experience on the baseball field. It was a fun day.
I bet. Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, well, what do you think? I know this isn't you and you don't have to speculate if you don't want to, but what do you think keeps other teachers from buying into that perspective then? Like, what do you think keeps them from, like, really getting to know their students, and what keeps them, you know, just standing at the podium all class? Like, do they just not want to make that connection, or are they intimidated by it? What do you think it is?
For some people, I think that it's, they don't, this is going to sound a little harsh, but I don't think they have the emotional capacity. Like they have so much going on within them and within their own personal life that taking
Mhm.
on the other, like taking on the cares of the students is too much for them.
Yeah.
I think I've run into a lot of teachers who are like, they're here because DODEA affords them a very, very good lifestyle for a teacher, honestly.
Yes.
And they're here for that. And
Mhm.
they're we call them lock and leaves.
You
They're
have a
here
word
to
for it. Yes, thank you. I didn't know there was a word for it. I was dying to find
Lock
the
and
word.
leave.
Lock and
Yeah.
leave. There it
Lock
is.
and leaves. Yep. Lock
Mhm.
it up, leave it there, and only deal with it when you have to be in the building during your duty hours.
Mhm.
But that's, yeah, that, and I understand people, we all have, we want to keep our personal life as
Yeah.
private as you want, but I think it ruins people's, I don't think boundaries are wrong, but I think
Mhm.
closing yourself off to that will definitely dampers progress in the classroom and with your students. And
Yeah.
I think another thing is that, like, teachers, I don't know, I think sometimes they get bogged down by all the extra stuff that's asked of us. I mean,
Sure.
we're supposed to be experts in our field so that we can teach properly and be
Mhm.
truly experts in the classroom that are sharing that knowledge and growing more knowledge with our students. But then there's the pressure of, like, well, now you have to learn continuous school improvement goals, and you, music teacher, you need to contribute to the math goals of the school. What are you going to do
Right.
about math in your classroom?
What
Well,
are you going to do,
Dad,
Miss Wooten?
well, I'm going to teach music and math. That's what I'm going to do.
There you go.
Well, and that's teachers, they're like, you get bogged down. You're like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do this. And the principal wants you to do this. And it looks bad if you do that. And there's a lot of pressure that I think people react to differently. And when
Mhm.
people can't stand that pressure and don't know how to sink or swim, that's that's the surefire way to, like, put the wall up and, back
Yeah.
away and say that, it's too much for me to do all of this, and my life is better without it. But
Mhm.
I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm a sink or swim kind of girl, and I'm more interested in what's gonna work well for my students. So
Well,
you gotta find balance in the force. So
exactly, yeah. Well, from what I hear, a lot of students feel that way about you as well. So that's it's a great thing, especially Sammy. Sammy, do you think that it's important to have more personable teachers like Miss Woon who actually care? I mean, this is such an obvious question, but I mean, just
Yeah,
for,
no.
for like the way you learned as well, because I know you're a guy who like actually likes to talk to people, and
Yeah,
you're a social dude. Yeah.
yeah, very, very social person.
Mhm.
But I think the way education's evolving too, and especially right after getting out of a pandemic where we were stuck on a computer for 2.5
Mhm.
years, and you notice a lot now with kids who don't necessarily have those social skills. So it's important
Right.
for teachers to be open, especially at a young, or especially in the high school age when you're starting to figure yourself out and come into like what the world has to offer. It's important to have adults sharing what life is, careers.
Yeah, being people,
Just
right?
have somebody to talk to, because most of the time you're talking to your teachers more end of the day than you are your parents, who are, especially for a
Mhm.
DODEA, your dad who's deployed or whatnot, your mom who's working all the time. It's important to have strong connections with teachers.
Yeah, it really is. I completely agree, man. Miss Woon, did you notice after COVID? Because after COVID, Sammy and I graduated from high school, so we kind of got out of high school and went into college at a really strange, in between time. But it was almost convenient in that we didn't have to take that gap while still in high school, which I know was really difficult for a lot of high schoolers. Did you notice a gap academically and socially once you guys got back to in person? Yeah, was it? Yeah.
It was so interesting when it first all came crashing down.
Mhm.
I uh, my students were about with, like, we are going to have over 100 kids on stage performing together, and then the week before, just, like that. And so initially it was mourning. There were it was shock. It was mourning. And then a colleague of mine said, Erika, your class isn't that important anymore. They need to they need to pass their graduation requirements. They need to get through high school, you can't have any, you shouldn't have any strict requirements for your kids because music is an elective.
I'm sure you took that very well.
I took it in stride. Like okay. I'm back. But I changed that into, okay, well, if you're Sammy, when he was in music appreciation, we had that song of the week. And so, okay, I've done that before. How can we change that to help you as a student process what's going on? And my virtual classes became at that very first time, just kind of like, this is the song I'm listening to, but here's what's really going on in my heart. And my classes became virtual venting sessions where kids were like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do, but this music is helping me right now. And maybe it'll help you too. But then as we kind of did a hybrid situation and then more kids come back, the older kids were more like, I'm so ready to be back. I'm so excited. Please, oh, please, can we just have normal class again. And what I'm noticing now that I teach middle and high school, right now I teach 11 to 18-year-olds in the same classroom. And when
how does that work?
I don't know, but I try real hard. We make it work, but there is a huge gap in social emotional wellness in the younger kids. They don't know how to interact with each other. And when something goes wrong, they don't know how to respond. And so, for instance, my first concert in Bahrain, I had a sixth grade girl come in, and I make my expectations regarding concert attire very clear on the first day. I put it in the syllabus. We talk about it. I do my job.
Yeah.
She came in and her hair was all like all over the place.
Colors.
Yeah, and I don't. You can be whatever color you want to be, but if your hair is not up, like I've put your hair in a ponytail so you're not like, oh my god, my hair during a concert, right? Oh, now, look what I've done. But this girl came in, she didn't have her hair up, and I said, hey, do you mind putting your hair in a ponytail? That's what we just want it off your face so the audience can see you and so that it doesn't bother you when you're playing your instrument. And she had a complete and utter meltdown, just on the floor, crying. I can't put my hair in a ponytail. I'm so ugly. And
I don't know how you do it. That's a whole lot of patience.
5 minutes to go. And I'm like, it's okay. I just don't want you to accidentally get your hair in your eyeball when you're trying to put your clarinet in your mouth. And it's not let's just get over this, but full on meltdown. And there have been other instances like this where just a tiny thing, I hope Sammy can attest to this. I'm not mean. when I approach these situations, I'm not like a guard dog. I'm not angry about it. How am I going to get the best result? How am I going to go about this and get the result that we all need to move on? But it doesn't always work that way. But there's been a lot of situations like that where just a very, very, very small thing tips a student to have a very, very large emotional reaction. And I just think 2 years of not interacting with people on a real basis and interacting via screens has really kind of slowed down students' ability to kind of just accept what's going on, and problem solve quickly and progress. And it's academic as well. A lot of writing, because we write in music classes, and we're trying to make sure kids are improving, but there's a huge dip in writing skills because we just, how does one teach writing through the internet adequately to a 7th grader? Like this, these are hard things that people have had to overcome, and there's a giant gap. So I think the direction of education now is more, how do we fill the gap? How do we fill the gap, get these kids back to where they are, and yet at the same time kind of accept that this is a huge part of their life now. This is going to be, a big memory and a big, writing letters of recommendation for students after the pandemic, and saying, despite these terrible things, the student was still, trying their best and trying to proceed. And, they want to pursue a good life and a good education. So please accept them, but it's just, but you have to acknowledge it, and you can't hop over it, but it's quite a challenge for sure.
Right. So from your perspective, are you trying to actively repair what they've missed, even though it might not be what you normally teach in your curriculum? Or are you just trying to stay your course?
You have to, like I said earlier, you got to educate the whole kid. You have to accept them as who they are and where they are, and be willing to, like Sammy said, sometimes you just need an adult that's not your parents. You used to end up talking to these people more than you do your own folks. And so how do I, as an adult, help? How can I help? And it's just, it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of, in between assignments, like, so how are you?
Yeah.
How did that project in your other class go? And did you find that present for your mom for her birthday? I know you were thinking about that a lot. It's just being willing to ask enough questions that you can follow up with a student and say, how are all the things going? Not just the thing that you're responsible for me, but.
And from what I understand, even if they're not going to be the most forthcoming initially, just the fact that you're willing to ask them those questions, that does mean a lot to them, because it's like, hey, like this person, they care, just like Sammy was saying. So it definitely makes a difference. So COVID aside, I think that's something that maybe Sammy can attest to this too. Just kids today in general, whether it's the cell phone, social media addictions that a lot of them have, or just the shorter attention spans in general, kids are changing in that way. Does that make it difficult for you in the classroom? And is that something that you've noticed over the years?
Well, were you guys at Kubasaki when Dr. Mowen was there?
Yes, I was going to ask you about Dr. Mowen actually.
Oh.
Yes, legend.
Gosh, what a legend.
But it was a big change.
Yes. Do you both know that he has passed away?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah,
yes,
unfortunately.
that's sad news.
Oh man, that man changed my life. But he was a legend, 100%. He had that Kubasaki dad tie because he was, and my God, that man, when it was so wonderful when he came in and he said, kids don't need cell phones during class. They need to be in their backpacks or in their locker. They can have them any other time. And for teachers, that was huge because no other administrator had come in and said, here's the line, and we're going to toe this line, and we're all going to follow these expectations. And there are consequences to these when people don't follow the expectations. And that was huge. And it was so helpful because even then, before the pandemic, it just, it's creeping in. It's always there. And I know you want to post something on Instagram, but oh my God, I'm so much more important right now. So come on, get over yourselves. But now, because students have become reliant on communicating with almost everybody in a virtual sense, it is more than taking a safety blanket away. It's like taking away the safety blanket and the pacifier and the bottle. It's like any form of comfort is personified in this device. And I'm going to show my age. I didn't have a cell phone until my freshman year in college. And my parents told me, you can't have one because you don't need one. Who are you going to call? Us? It is like
us. I paid for you.
Wow.
Yeah, like, but, and then, you know, my brother, when he was a sophomore, they were like, sure, here's a cell phone.
Yeah, funny how the standards change, right?
Oh my gosh. But I got through high school without being in communication nonstop with my parents and my peers like that. And when I talk to my students about that, it's like, when you are texting someone else in my class and I'm up here trying to educate you or tell you a stupid joke or something, you're not here. You're elsewhere and you don't care. And that hurts me because I care deeply about you and I care deeply about what I do and what we do as a class.
Okay. Yes. Okay, you're back. No, you're fine.
I'm so sorry.
Sammy was just saying you should be a Zoom professional by now. He doesn't know what's going on.
Oh God, Zoom? DODEA, are you kidding me? DODEA was like, Zoom is owned by China. We will only use Google Meet. So yeah.
Ooh.
Pro move.
Yeah. I'm sure that was
Google
very
everything.
smooth.
Yeah, no problem. Zoom, but sorry. At any rate, like it is definitely an issue because the students are so dependent on their cell phone now. And it's like, well, we'd like you to be present. We'd like you to be here in this moment, absorbing as much as you can from this moment. And when you're on your phone, you're elsewhere. And we don't want that. And I think, but it's in teachers now too, because teachers have also, you know, we're humans too. We still have connections. And a lot of times when I have a sub or something, I say, thanks so much for being here in my letter when I can't, you know, dear sub, thank you so much for being here when I can't be here. Right? Please don't sit on your phone the entire time.
Ooh.
That won't help the class. Because so many times I'll come back and I'll say, how'd it go? And they're like, oh, the sub sat in the corner on their phone the entire time and we just kind of did whatever we want. I'm like, I wrote plans. I took hours out of my day preparing for this. So I think it's cultural now that, and that's, how do we address that? And it starts in schools. So we have to start teaching people that they don't need it all the time, that you can check in with your parents at lunchtime or, you know, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, it's a really tough line to draw, unfortunately, for a lot of kids because they really can't comprehend life without it. They're growing up with it. It's their main source of communication. I think especially military kids sometimes because a lot of times they're talking to friends who may be on the other side of the world, you know, and it's really difficult for them to understand that they don't need it 24/7. But it does start with people like Dr. Mowen, who are able to draw the line and just say, hey, this is how it's going to be. It's going to suck. You're going to, you know, get withdrawals or whatever from this device. I mean, that's literally what it's like. It's crazy. It's really, it's a really tough situation. I can imagine, especially for teachers who you want to capture their attention and, you know, you work so hard to prepare these plans and to teach them, and for them to just seemingly not care, that must be a slap in the face some days. That must be really difficult. Sammy, what do you remember about Dr. Mowen's arrival? Because, well, you came here the same year as he did, so you did. I guess you didn't know Kubasaki before him, but just the fact that he was like showing up to our baseball games and stuff. What did that mean to you?
It meant the world because, you know, you had heard stories of the previous principal who just seemed to, you know, not care about anything outside of academics. And, you know, I came from a public high school in the States where I had high expectations for, you know, the lifestyle of high schoolers, and, you know, him putting the ping pong tables in the cafeteria, him trying to make homecoming a lot more fun with the floats and whatnot. It was just really important for him to recognize, like, hey, you guys are on the other side of the world, but I want to give you the opportunity to have, a somewhat normal high school experience, because it's a huge part of everybody's life, and it's important to let kids have those experiences.
Yeah, it really is. And the fact he was just so honest with us about that is like I remember the first day of school, we were in the gym, and he had the ringing of the bell ceremony, and he just addressed all of us just like super casually, and he's like, look, these are the new rules, this is how it's gonna go. And I think the respect grew from him whenever we started seeing him deliver on his end of the bargain, like he wanted high expectations for us, but then things start changing around the school, like the ping pong tables, and even
especially when we got into student council, where we,
yeah,
were recognized more, and he valued our opinion. That was the crazy thing about it, like how genuinely he valued our opinion and was willing to make some of those transitions, because at the end of the day, like, we're the students, he oversees everything, but we really see what's going on inside of the classrooms, outside of how athletics are looking, and he wanted it all. He wanted the whole shebang.
Yeah, he talked to us too, like one-on-one, which really it was a really cool thing, and the culture change just immediately was such a cool thing. It was going from this rundown school that resembled nothing of a stateside experience to someone who's really trying to establish that for us. So it was really cool having Doc Mao show up.
Yeah, Doc. He was just amazing, and I still talk about him with my colleagues, and because a lot of teachers ask, do you work with this administrator? It always seems like when you come to a new place, like, do you know this person, or did you? And it's like, well, I'd rather talk about the good experiences I've had, and Dr. Mowen is top of the list.
Absolutely. We're running out of time just a little bit. I don't know if Sammy's going to drop on us, but I do want to talk a little bit about your. Yeah, I know.
So we got a foot of snow last night, so my appointment got pushed back even more.
Awesome.
So we're good.
Let's go. Great news. All right, then let's talk a little bit more about Kubasaki. Because we kind of skipped over your early teaching career, and I know you worked with elementary school students, and then you went to high school students. So you're a versatile teacher. You're an academic weapon, as they'd say. All sorts of experience. Yeah, you use that one. Put that in your bio. That's great. Well, do you remember your arrival to Okinawa and getting to Kubasaki? I always like hearing people's initial reactions to the school and the environment, and just the island life.
Well, I gotta prompt you with a little bit of my first DODEA experience.
Sure.
So I was hired right out of college and to teach elementary school music in Seoul, South Korea. And when I got there, they said, oh man, Seoul. When I got there, they said, don't get comfortable. The school will be gone in 3 years.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. It's gone now, right?
Seoul is now gone. It's all but when I got there, they said, here's your music room. And it was a portable building that was established in the late 60s that had been condemned 3 times. It had rats in the ceiling when I came in, and it had no heating or air conditioning except for one portable unit. So I couldn't have my kindergarten students take off their mittens in the winter because it was 48 degrees in the classroom. And the awning was separate from the building. So when the snow came and it started to melt, it would drip onto the door handle. And when I would arrive in the winter, my door handle would be encased in ice. And the first time this happened, I called the office and I said, I can't get into my room. My door handle is encased in ice. And they were like, we'll call supply. So they call supply, and he shows up with a hammer and a chisel, and he gives them to me. Here you go.
Oh, perfect.
So here I am, like 23. I'm working with my door handle so I can get in and teach little kids music. Like, what is this? So that was like, oh, is this what DODEA is? Like, what have I done? But I mean, like, structurally, not so sound. Kids, fantastic.
Mhm.
And so, but after 5 years of living in a densely populated city, I was really ready for the total opposite.
Mhm.
And my goal, my dream has always been to teach in Europe because that's where I was a DODEA kid. And it hasn't happened yet, but hang
On the horizon, who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? But so when I applied for my transfer to Okinawa, I wrote the continent of Europe. I said anything in Europe. And then I went, well, maybe Okinawa would be cool. I mean, I went there for a TDY. People seem nice. It's a nice island.
Mhm.
Okinawa. And that's what I got. High school Spanish from elementary school music to high school Spanish in Okinawa. And so walking in, I was like, oh God. Gotta wear my high heel shoes because I gotta be taller than some of these boys and like look down on them. You do what I say.
Yeah.
And teach them all in Spanish. And at the time it was just me and Senora Menendez teaching Spanish. And
she's horrible.
Sammy, no, that's not what we're doing. Stop it. No.
But unfortunately, teachers get reputations with kids. It's just how it is. And so
this is true.
And so when I came in, I got to teach 4 Spanish 1 classes and 1 Spanish 2. And when I came into Kubasaki, they were like, here's your room. And it was filled with prom decorations because the previous teacher was in charge of prom and she used the classroom as her storage unit for, I mean, like there were fake parrots, there were balloons, there were streamers, there was like just stuff,
surprise,
pirate stuff everywhere. And I was like, well, you couldn't clean up before you left? And just, so I walked into Kubasaki, here's your room. It's filled with prom decorations and stuff. And do you want to do prom? I'm like, I've never taught high school before. No, I'm not ready for that yet. And that first year, I had 1 class of Spanish 1 where it was 26 students and 24 of them were freshman boys. And within the first month of school, about 16 papers came in with a very lovely drawing on them of a phallus on my homework sheets that boys sent in to me. And I was like, this isn't gonna fly.
Welcome to the
welcome to Kubasaki. Let me show you how good of an artist I am in Spanish.
That's tough.
Oh man, it was rough. And I took pictures, sent them to parents, said, this is what your child submitted on their homework. They were all like, oh my God.
She did not.
And one of my favorite things about military families is that they've seen it all. And they're not, oh, that's never my child. Oh, my child could never do that. Oh, that's impossible for my child to do that. So it was a very initially very negative experience that turned into a very positive experience because I got to grow relationships with parents, and that turned into don't mess with Miss Wootton. And and then after we got over that, it was smooth sailing. And I genuinely loved teaching at Kubasaki. I just, it's an old building. It's been there a whole long time. And even when I got there, they were like, yeah, don't get comfortable. It's going to be gone in 5 years. And it's still there.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's the legend that keeps growing.
It does. It really, and you can't, I mean, we're fueling it. But so it was, my first experiences at Kubasaki were interesting, to say the least, but then it all kind of grows on you. Then it just, and with each administrator who has added to the building to improve it, to make it feel better, to make it more welcoming. And then when I became a full-time music teacher there, we are one of the only schools in the Pacific that had a real theater where kids could perform on a real stage with real, I mean, like now, working in a cafetorium as my stage, oh my gosh, we had a 900 seat auditorium that, okay, it was old and it wasn't perfect, but my goodness, what a wonderful asset for kids. And it just, an open air between the classrooms or between the buildings. I went to a high school where everything was one building and you couldn't go outside. And that opportunity to, walk between classes and get some fresh air and eat outside and, that is important to kids and to adults to have that kind of change in the middle of the day. But Kubasaki, hands down, was just, highlight of my career so far. And 10 years there went in a blink of an eye. And I'm not ashamed to say that I miss it. I really do. I'm glad we moved. And, that military kid thing, 10 years, I've never lived 10 years anywhere in my entire life.
Yeah. That must have been bizarre. It's like home all of a sudden, even though it's in such a far away place from, where a lot of people consider to be home.
But it was, I think Okinawa has that, like we talked about that initially, it's that family, that military family that envelops you when you come in. And then it's getting to know the place and the beauty, and then getting to, problem solve in an old building where, it's just never going to be perfect. So you do the best you can. And we did, I think you guys were there when we did some school beautification projects, and that's
sure. I'm sure we took part.
Oh, sure.
We were supposed to.
Well, and I mean, but that's, teaching students to take ownership of the building as well as what they're doing within the building. And that's special. And I think, once a dragon, always a dragon. And Kubasaki has that no matter who's in the building. That's how it feels, hopefully, for most kids anyway.
Don't write threats on the bathroom stalls, right, Sammy? Do you remember that little incident? that was in your building. That was when we were at Far East, actually, at the time. So
I was gonna say I don't remember anybody, or I don't remember that.
Yeah, we were at Far East.
My sophomore year, Cameron McCall kicked down the bathroom door, and Dr. Mowen came in, and that was funny.
I'm sure. So that is a strange thing in that whenever you go somewhere to teach, do you know at all how long you're going to be there? Like, is there a certain length initially that it's just whatever? Because I know a lot of Kubasaki teachers, it's like they've been there their entire life.
Well, and that's so it's so interesting because when I first, like, a DODEA teacher made me want to be a DODEA teacher. When I was in Italy, I had the greatest fifth grade teacher. Our fifth grade trip was to Florence, and
awesome.
Yeah, and we have to. Well, that fifth grade trip, and like the boy of my dreams was like, "Can I kiss you on the cheek in the middle of the ballet?" Because in fifth grade in Florence on your trip, that's what little boys ask. It's like,
big deal, yeah.
But oh my gosh, such like that, having that experience, even at like 11 years old, I was like, I want to be this teacher. I want to go on trips and take kids to places. And this is the life I want to lead. And we initially, when I got into DODEA, there was many opportunities, yearly opportunities for teachers to apply to move. And it all depended on how long you had been where, like if you had been in DODEA for 15 years and you were in, an undesirable location, then you're at the top of the stack to get a chance to move. And now that's completely gone away. And so we are seeing a lot more people staying put and making careers out of one high school overseas, when a lot of us signed up for this so that we could have the opportunity to move, so that we could go to new places with our job. And the only reason I got Bahrain is because I looked on usajobs.gov. Like I was like, you know what? It's time to move. I need to.
Yeah.
And I don't know when a transfer round is going to be available to me. So let's shoot the moon and see what happens. And now I'm here. But yeah, you don't know. You don't know how long you're going to be somewhere, and you just kind of have to make the most of it and do what you can.
Right. So what is this move? You've been there for over a year now, right? I'm getting a little confused.
Yeah, a year and a month.
Yeah, a year and a month. Gotcha. Barely. So what is this year? So I would say you could still be transitioning. What has it been like thus far? Because I mean, polar opposites, I can imagine. Both islands, you said,
Yes.
between Okinawa and Bahrain. But other than that, I can imagine there's quite a few differences for you and your family living over there.
You know, Okinawa and Japanese culture is an Okinawan culture. It's really beautiful. And here, my very first introduction to life in Bahrain was coming through the airport. I walked up to the immigration officer, and I gave them my orders and all of my paperwork with my name on it, because my husband is not, he's like, he worked for MCCS while we were in Okinawa, but the primary job is me.
A phenomenal substitute teacher, I might add. I had a great class with Mr. Koya's. He built it. I mean, just world class.
Well, he and Koya are best friends, and they're man, they get along very, very well.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
But yeah, and so when he wasn't substitute teaching, like he was working for MCCS, and he's, you know, his job has been secondary to mine because mine has been kind of the pillar. But that's hard to believe in the Middle East. So I came to immigration, and with all of my paperwork and with my name on top and my dependents listed as the two boys in my house, and they looked at my husband and said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I am here with my wife. My wife is the teacher. My wife has the job." And he kept looking, the immigration officer kept looking at my husband, said, "Your name is not up here on the paperwork." My husband said, "No, you need to talk to my wife. It is her job." And he looked at me, and he looked at the paper, and he looked at my husband. And he looked at me, and he looked at the paper, and then he disappeared. And he went to one of those, you know, walls he went to a door that looks like a wall and kind of disappeared in the airport. And then came back, and we're like, what? And he came back with
country.
Yeah, we're standing there like you know, traumatic. I got to tell you, leaving the jungle of Okinawa to landing in the sand of Bahrain, I was having a little moment on the plane, like, oh God. And then I walk in, and they're like, "Who's this broad with a job?" What? And they came back with a higher level person who again talked to my husband and said, "What is your job here?" I don't have a job here. My wife is the job.
We've been over this. Yeah.
Yes. And he looked at me. He said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I am a teacher for the Department of Defense Education Activity. I am here with the United States Navy. I would like to go and do my job." And he looked down, and in we went. And
wow.
Yeah, that was
quite the introduction. Yeah.
Quite the introduction. But my assistant principal met us at baggage claim and was very welcoming and drove us to our hotel and said, "See you tomorrow." Because when you transfer in the middle of the school year, you arrive and then you start work the next day. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it was something. So a little bit of culture shock, and then coming into Bahrain school was the music room is named after the most former teacher who was there for 28 years, and then. Wow. Yeah, he quit the year the pandemic started. And then these students have had 2 years of subs in a pandemic.
2
They
years
did.
of subs.
Oh,
Yes. And that's the thing with, and I'm totally going to make a plug for Bahrain here, is that it is a difficult place for some to live, but it's so difficult to keep teachers here for these kids,
Yeah.
because it's very easy for some people. Some people, get the 6,000 square foot mansion with their own private pool and an elevator, and they're like, oh, this is the lap of luxury. I'm so happy. Nothing can ruin it. And then there are people who are like, this is not the right place for me, and I need to get out of here. And then these poor kids are left with 2 years of substitutes.
Yeah.
And so coming into this position for me, I'd never taught middle school before. And here I am coming into kids who are kind of shell-shocked from a pandemic and haven't had a real music teacher for 2 years. And it's like,
They must be
okay.
happy to see you. Yeah, this must be a relief.
same teacher back-to-back days? What?
Yeah, wait a minute. This isn't normal.
No.
And she's in person? She's real?
Yeah.
It was in that, for me, that was nice to be able to come into that, but so hard for the kids. I mean, and in as much as they're excited to be able to be with a teacher who's here and wants to teach them and is invested in them, they've kind of forgotten about how to work and what they need to do to be successful. Right. So it's kind of retraining people and, reestablishing routines and helping. But it was, so initially, big shock.
Yeah.
But the kid culture here, the students at the school, like I said, having the dorm and students who are wearing a hijab, and students who are local, they are Bahraini, and their parents pay for them to have an American education.
Yeah.
And then the military students, the military only makes up 45% of the school. So it's a very different ballgame. And but it's cool because these kids come from so many different walks of life, but they all want an American education, or as close to what that is that they can have here. And they're fighting for it, and it's nice. So I am ceaselessly impressed by my students, and I really enjoy them. But otherwise, whew.
Yeah, quite the challenge. Well, the 45%, that really surprises me. I never even thought about just how different the student populations would be from, stop to stop across the world. You would think that a lot of DODEA schools would be similar in that aspect, but I guess that's not the case. Do you notice a difference just in morale of the students in comparison to Okinawa? Like, is that something that you've noticed, being in the desert? I'm not trying to put it down or anything, but it's directly contrasting from Okinawa in a lot of ways.
Well, I think now that things are opening up, I mean,
yeah,
I'm able to go to Germany for music festivals with my students 3 times a year if they
3 times. Whoa,
yeah.
Wait a minute, sweet deal.
Yeah, and that's well, and that's and they don't have a football team. The school's so small. There's not a football team. There's very sadly not a baseball team.
Is there soccer?
There is soccer. Yeah, soccer is extremely important. Like this part of the world, it's very, very popular.
Yeah. The World Cup is just
lots
pretty
of
close.
Oh man,
yeah.
This 12-hour drive through the desert down to Qatar from here. But it's very different in the sense that religious beliefs are much more a part of the conversation with students, with teachers, with planning. In Okinawa, the after school life there are a lot more opportunities in terms of extracurriculars, and but still having that relatively isolated feel, and that's the same case here. But opportunities are much more limited. There aren't nearly as many clubs or after school sports. There are a lot of international schools here, but during the pandemic, a lot of those relationships broke down, and then a lot of the staff turned over. And so now it's kind of the regrowth time. Like, how do we reestablish relationships with the international schools and start getting some exchanges going?
Yeah.
And kind of getting kids to interact more with what's around them instead of just coming to this, this school that's not on the base. It's on its own piece of land that's,
Gotcha.
fenced in with barbed wire and armed guards and big, big bomb-proof doors that are so heavy to open. It's so it's very different.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of things. A lot of things are very, very different here, and of course you can't really do things outside for 6 months of the year because it is hot.
Right.
Like,
Different type of heat, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okinawa had some serious humidity, and we had feels like temperatures in like the hundreds. But here it's like it is 115 degrees and it feels like 131 with the humidity. Like, and we can't go play tennis. Yeah, we can't go play
not
tennis
in the hard court. No.
Oh my gosh. So it's how people have coped and managed to survive and make a way of life here is very interesting. But I would say that the students are they're adaptable. Well, this is where we are. This is what it is. What are we going to do? Let's do something. Let's figure it out.
It's really impressive.
A lot more. And truly, I think in Okinawa, kids, because there were so many opportunities, I was like, I don't really have to if I don't want to. But here it's like, well, you have to do something or you won't have friends. You won't have opportunities to grow or have fun. So I think the population in terms of students here is a lot more adaptable, a lot more ready to try new things and kind of force themselves out there because they have to.
Yeah, that's just part of what makes DODEA students really impressive in my eyes, just being able to do that. And, there's you can prepare all you want. You can do all your research, but nothing compares to actually, get in there, like you said, and then getting stopped in the airport or something like that, or feeling the 130-degree heat, I can imagine. Yeah. We could absolutely talk to you all day. This is such a cool conversation, but we do have to wrap it up here soon. I have just a few more questions. What do you hope to teach students just overall, other than, music or Spanish? What is a lesson that you really want students to have from your classroom? And then we'll see if Sammy learned it.
Ooh. Trixie. Trixie, Shanon. Oh man, honestly, at the end of the day, I want kids to feel like they're better because of what they've done in my class, like that they have learned and they have a new skill and they want to continue that new skill. My ISS, that's the instructional systems specialist.
Oh, I thought that was in-school suspension. What?
Yeah,
yeah, that's that too. Yeah, my experience
we spent more time in
ISS
that.
taught me one thing, right? There's like a fine arts boss and for each region, and so my fine arts boss in the Pacific, his name is Nathan McCoy, and he said, he was working on how do we, what's going to be like the slogan for fine arts, and it's creating students who want to participate in the arts for their life, to become lifelong participants in the arts. And that's my goal at the end of the day. And in terms of music, like I want my students to go away wanting to continue to participate in music and wanting to continue to be a part of that and keep it alive in their life. And in Spanish, Spanish is such it's such a different ballgame because it's a graduation requirement. And a year of fine arts is a grad requirement, but a lot of the kids that are in there because they truly love music and learning about fine arts. But in Spanish, I have to do this because my parents want me to, and because I have to graduate, like, como estas,
Yeah.
So you have to find the thing that will hook them in and make them A, want to survive, and B, hopefully want to continue it at some level and use their Spanish in a real world setting. So if somehow, Sammy, you have used your Spanish in a real world setting,
Use my
I'm
Spanish.
proud.
He did use it all the time. Driving his rusty bug around Camp Foster, he'd be just shouting random Spanish phrases that he learned, and certainly Miss Wooten's class. So there you go.
Yes, all the random ones.
Yes. Dios mío, right, Sammy?
Oh yeah.
One of your favorites. Yeah. Wow, this has been so much fun. My last question, if Sammy has anything else as well, would be what advice do you have for aspiring DODEA teachers? Because a lot of military kids who probably listen to this podcast, they're getting a little bit older. That's something that they want to do. Hopefully, they want to become DODEA teachers themselves. So is there anything that you have for them?
Yes.
Any advice?
Do it.
Yeah. Do it.
Do it.
Just don't let a lot of, especially when you get your first position, there are people who want to rain on your parade. And unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, those are the people you meet first. Like coming to Bahrain, when I got to the school, I met some people and some of them were like, well, yeah, everyone is so welcoming. And then it's like, so it's totally crap here, and you should totally plan your exit plan, and you don't want to be here that long.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, nice to meet you too. But my best piece of advice is to go for it, and don't let negative attitudes get in your way. If you have a goal in your heart, go for it, and don't let anyone get in your way. Work for it. The best things in life require hard work, and the road sometimes is hard, but it's so worth it. And being a DODEA teacher has been one of the greatest things in my life. Now that I have a kid, I can't really say it's the greatest thing.
Yeah, it's up there, I'm sure. Yeah,
it's genuinely having been a military kid and now seeing it from another side, from a civilian side, and also being able to work with these kids who some will thrive and some will struggle, and being able to talk to them and be real with them and encourage them like that. At the end of the day, that is so good. That is so good for them to have a teacher that they can trust and can talk to and just let it all out and not be afraid of being judged. And, like Sammy can probably tell you, there's like, sometimes some things were said in the room that had to just stay in the room. But
really?
It's just creating, kids need to have that place where they know that they can just be themselves and it's okay. And I think in DODEA, there are more people who care about students being able to be themselves and grow as who they are and what they want to be. I think this is the system where there are more people who care about encouraging that than anywhere else.
Well, that's a great thing. Well said. Sammy, anything from you, buddy?
Well, I was just going to ask how your son likes living over there. I mean, obviously he's going to learn to appreciate it as he gets older, but it's
he must be so much older now. I remember him crawling around Mr. Koi's classroom floor during lunch while I was cramming to study for the quizzes.
Oh my God, he's 5.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, he's 5 years old. And I'm gonna do a total mom thing here and show you a picture of a picture. Like, look at that little guy.
Oh, look at him go.
Look
I like
at
the
him.
knee
He's on
pads.
stage.
Yeah.
Forget the baseball player.
Wait, is this hockey potential? Yeah, Sammy.
Yeah.
You need to capitalize on this, buddy.
No. Oh God, no. We still play catch. No, we, that's the cool thing I think about growing up overseas, is that there are the opportunities, if you give them and share them, are endless. If you're willing to go to an ice rink in Bahrain, like where nobody knows what they're doing, and you're like, oh, whatever, it's fine. But my son is actually, he missed the cutoff for DODEA kindergarten by 2 months because, they're very strict on those rules. So, but he's a smart little cookie. So we decided to put him in international kindergarten.
All right.
he is the lone American boy in a class full of Bahraini and Pakistani students.
Yeah.
And it's all, and he wears a little Harry Potter uniform. It's very cute.
Yeah.
But in schools here, it is mandatory to take Arabic studies and Islamic studies, but he is not allowed to participate in those classes because he is not a Muslim.
Huh.
So this really interesting experience that he could have in learning Arabic and learning about the Islam culture and the Muslim religion is not afforded to him in his international school because he is not a Muslim. So it's just so interesting. He will come to DODEA. He will be at my school next year when he is of age. But this experience so far, I mean, it's been very, very interesting for him as well. And he points out the Bahraini flag. Oh, that's the Bahraini flag. That's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia flag. That's the Pakistani flag. And he knows more about the flags in this region of the world than anywhere else. He's been to the States for a grand total of like 8 weeks.
Yeah, I was saying, that's crazy. Yeah.
So I grew up overseas and I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that he will too, because I don't have any intention of teaching in the States.
Europe's next. What are we talking about?
Exactly. That's right. Europe's next. So and we and that's the thing about moving here, is that we were able to spend the entire summer in Europe, taking our son to London, to the top of the Eiffel Tower, to Switzerland, to just showing him the world. And that is what I want for him. I want for him to see the world and know the world and to grow up in that. So hopefully that works out.
I'm sure he'll see it as a net positive as you did, moving around growing up too. So it's going to be a lot of cool experiences. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Otherwise, tough situation.
But you both have turned out to be very fine young gentlemen. So look at you. You have lots to be proud of.
You hear that, Sammy? Gents. After everything. We're gents right here. Yep.
No dogs. Yes, just gentlemen.
No. Whoa! No, she knows the lore. We got to shut it down, guys. This is getting too far. Thank you both so much for joining the show today. I mean, this has just been really neat, and just hearing your perspective on DODEA teachers and teaching strategies and today's students. It's I hope a lot of people enjoy it. So thank you so much, Sammy and Erika.
Thank you.
Anytime.